Artificial intelligence is changing the world around us, and the medical field will be no different. A recent report shows that the market for AI in clinical trials is expected to balloon to nearly $4 billion in value by 2027 from $1 billion valuation last year. So what is driving this surge? To tell us, we bring in Shahida Othman, my colleague at the Singapore Week of Innovation and Technology Conference at the SANS Expo and Convention Centre.
That's right, yes. Now, besides the cost, speed is also one of the key benefits of using AI in clinical trials. The time frame to develop a new drug from ground zero takes about 10 to 12 years, and this is according to a research from the Deloitte Center for Health Solutions. With AI, that time frame can easily be shortened by more than half to about 5 years. But with growth opportunities come risks. The World Health Organization has called for better regulations on the use of AI in the healthcare sector over concerns of privacy, unethical data collection, cybersecurity threats, and misinformation. And earlier, I spoke with Professor Chng Wee Joo. He is Senior Principal Investigator of the Cancer Science Institute of Singapore. I started by asking him how clinical trials have progressed over the years.
So when we talk about clinical trials, there really are 3 stages. Usually in the phase 1 clinical trial, we'll be testing the drug, sometimes in normal individual, but sometimes with patients with the disease. But phase 1 is to identify the safety of the drug and to identify the correct dose of the drug to go into larger clinical trials. And then phase 2, which is the next phase, you'll be using the dose that you have identified to treat a larger population of patients, but you are using the new drug on its own, right? And then phase 3 is where you compare this new medication to the current standard of care to show that it is actually better than the current standard of care. And this information in phase 3 study will then be used to get the approval of that treatment for marketing, for sales by the company, so that more patients can get access to that drug. So yeah, these are the 3 phases of the clinical trials.
Okay, and one of the major obstacles, or barriers rather, for these clinical trials is that they require a lot of time and resources, and they can be quite expensive as well.
Absolutely.
Perhaps you can expand on how technology is helping to facilitate the process and help tackle the challenges of clinical trials.
Yeah, so I think it comes in various forms. One is really to identify subgroups of patients that will benefit from the drug. And that actually requires upstream research to understand how the drug works and who are the patients that are most susceptible. So by being selective, you actually increase the chance of the drug succeeding and going on to the different phases. Now, when you go on to the different phases, the key challenge is in recruitment of the patients, right? And so now with AI, with digital platform, where you could feed in a set of inclusion and exclusion criteria, and the AI that is linked to the hospital system will immediately identify the list of patients that may be eligible for your trial. So you don't need to look for a needle in the haystack. You immediately know who are the people you should approach, and that should speed up recruitment. I think the other thing that will help a lot is that today, we just take example of cancer. The cancer treatment are so good that the patient survival is so long. If you want to develop a new drug, you need to recruit a large number of patients to show the benefit that you want to show, because it's so difficult to improve on them. So I think, and also the endpoints are very long. Survival could be 10, 15 years. So you're going to wait 10, 15 years before you have a readout, right? So this is again the area where the use of AI, digital platforms, and so on, and also earlier surrogate endpoints. So endpoints that we can see within a year, so that we can truncate the study duration to a much shorter period of time, and look at these endpoints where we no longer need to look at large group of patients, perhaps smaller group, because the difference would be significant, right? So I think these are some of the efforts or some of the ways to reduce the cost of trials, reduce the number of patients needed to treat, and also shorten the timeline for drug approval.
Okay, so we are seeing this positive trend of AI in the healthcare sector, but the World Health Organization has warned of potential risks. There are concerns of privacy, security, and integrity. How do you then balance innovation and ethics in AI healthcare applications?
I think this is something that we are very mindful of, and in fact, WHO just came out with a document on standards for AI research. And for us, really, when we talk about data, it's all anonymized data, and it is also really just helping us to segment the patient and identify the patients that are most likely to benefit from the treatment. So it is all within the data security of a hospital system, and none of these data actually go out to third party, right, where the risk may be higher. So within the MOH firewall of the public health institutions, if you apply these AI, then it's all within this very secure environment, and the data doesn't go out very far.
So it's basically putting regulations in place. You earlier touched on cancer treatment. When it comes to this, it often involves a new drug or drug combination, radiation or surgery. How does the healthcare industry rationalize the types of drugs to use or the best kind of treatment to approach this illness?
I think what we do is we base our clinical practice on the evidence that's been generated through all these clinical trials. And there's another layer now, is because even when there's evidence of the drug being better, is it cost effective?
Okay.
You know, maybe you have a new drug that costs 10 times more than the current standard of care, but is only prolonging life by 6 months, which is a small fraction.
Yeah.
Then that may not be so cost effective in that sense. So MOH has come up with a set of guidelines. They have an agency that is looking into this cost effectiveness.
Yeah.
And I think that's a right way to go. It doesn't suppress innovation because you will still be coming out with new, better treatment. And if the better treatment is really that good, it will meet the health economic criteria and get approved.
Yeah.
So I think it is a balance between industry, between government policies, and between the public healthcare institution as well, to articulate the gaps and the needs, so that the whole ecosystem, the different stakeholders should come together to make sure that innovation doesn't suffer, and we get to see the benefit of innovation, but also at a reasonable, cost-effective manner.
That's a very good point. My final question to you, Professor Chng. You led a team at the Cancer Science Institute of Singapore in a groundbreaking study that looks into ways to enhance treatment and diagnosis of blood cancer. Tell us why this study is so important. How did your team get to those conclusions?
Right, so my team has been working on blood cancer for a number of years. I think there are two things I would say for the recent effort. One is actually to use an AI-based platform to find the best combination of drug for a cancer. And that's because we know that cancer today cannot be well treated with just one drug. It's usually a combination of drugs. But when there's so many drugs available, which do you pick to combine with, right? So this AI platform is individualized to individual patient's tumor and can find the best combination. The other aspect that we are working on is really to understand the biology of high-risk cancer, because today's treatment is not really helping those poor-risk patients. So we need to go back to more fundamental to understand why these patients do so badly, in order to identify new pathways, new targets for new drugs, right? And I think this kind of effort to look at the unmet needs are better than a very generalized approach, because the benefit will be much more difficult to demonstrate, because there are already many good drugs in the market that's helping those standard risk patients, good risk patients. It's a high risk patients that we need to focus more attention on.